You won't believe it if I tell you that the concave plate weighs more than 100 kilograms, which is enough to subvert your cognition. Its core position is still synonymous with mystery. The weight of the single body alone is dozens of kilograms, and the diameter is exaggerated to 170 millimeters. The earliest form of the nut can be traced back to the 3rd century AD. Thousands of years have passed since the discovery of the Archimedean screw principle. In order to restore the giant nut to the greatest extent, before making it, the master will put hundreds of pounds of punching film under the hammer, and ensure that the punching film falls completely into the groove without deviation, so that the component is always in the same size during the deformation stage. But if you want the Rome contact surface to be horizontally accurate, you can't do without the center base to increase the zero error on the plane. Then lift the fastening plate, buckle it on the placed die, align the inner hole to the required position, and start tightening the screws around the disc. This is the only way to connect the die. But there is still a problem you don't know. That is, each nut will repeat the steps before breaking the pressure. It may seem a bit backward, but it is still the mainstream forging method nowadays. As the filling of the 1600-ton forging machine is completed, the saw blade of the cutting machine on the other side hasn't stopped either. The quality of the steel directly affects the strength of the nuts. That's why high-performance special steel is used for this process. Compared with other steel types, it has higher tensile strength. After the billet is lifted into the transfer box by the overhead crane, it can be automatically transferred. But the weight of the billet has to be handled manually by the master. Fortunately, the calcination process is long and the master can take a break. As the equipment starts up, it begins to activate the electric furnace. Then, using all his strength, the master turns the dial, which will play an important role in the next steps. Once the temperature reaches the required critical point, we can move on to the most crucial step in the entire nut-making process, which is the steel ingot. The forging process after heat treatment is divided into 3 steps. First is the primary stage before the ingot takes shape, where the drop hammer only needs to press the steel ingot into a flat disc. Next, we move on to the second non-final stage. This stage involves constant temperature control to ensure forging accuracy. After 2 rounds of forging, you can already see a hexagonal shape starting to form from the steel ingot. But these 2 steps alone clearly can't meet the core requirements. Therefore, after removing the moisture from the nut's hollow center, it can be placed into another drop hammer to complete the 3rd level of forging. To increase the overall strength and the shaping changes of the nut, the central round hole is then pierced, revealing the initial form of the nut clearly on the metal. However, at this point, it's still just a rough component. It also needs to be cooled naturally. After 3 hours of cooling, the metal has become completely bright, and it is hung on the iron hook and then driven forward by the crane, and all poured into the roller, ready for the finishing process. Finishing is the most important step before the heat treatment of metal is formed. What it produces is not just about removing oxidation. More importantly, shot peening can eliminate forging burrs, resulting in a limited improvement in the durability of the fasteners. Looking at the surface now, you can't see any traces left by the heating process. Instead, what you see are brand new appearances. Can you believe that each of these nuts has to be measured by the masters? Even though they are all forged by the same equipment, every necessary step must be followed without exception. Since the giant nut company didn't film at the same time, let's take a look at the small Rome company on the scene. There is no essential difference in the process between the 2 companies. Both of them complete the forming of the internal thread through the soup hole. The internal threading is formed next. Following that, the main purpose of the CNC cutting is to remove the contact surfaces on both sides, resulting in an extremely smooth finish for use. So, where exactly can such large nuts be used?